Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and you're listening to A Better Way with Kirsten podcast. On this podcast, we're talking about overcoming chronic sensations and pains in the body. They are also known as TMS, tension myositis syndrome, and you don't have to know this long name. Just know that when you refer to TMS, what I mean is that your sensations and pains and other uncomfortable problems in the body are not coming from any physical source. And that is truly the definition of TMS. Your problem, the pain, the chronic sensation is coming from your overworking, overly stressed brain and nervous system imbalance. And this is what I mean. TMS is also known as neuroplastic pain. It's also known as psychosomatic disorder. It has many names, but I like to use the term TMS here. And I also want to make clear, because I got a question about this recently. The TMS that I'm talking about is not transcranial magnetic stimulation. This is something that I cannot do because I am not a doctor. This would not be possible to do via podcast. So TMS, I know transcranial magnetic stimulation also is TMS, but the TMS I am talking about here is different. So this is the mind-body condition, neuroplastic pain, psychosomatic disorder, and all that. And again, just to say one more time that is clear, it is coming from your nervous system and your brain, and physically you are actually okay. So today's episode is going to be a shorter one, but I want to share a really important message with you, because there's something that I'm noticing with people who have had this TMS, these chronic sensations and pains for a while. They're not overcoming it as quickly as they would like to, and they can get very angry at themselves because the pain is still there. Or they can even get angry at themselves because the pain started to begin with. Like, why is it here? And a lot of times people think that they have done something wrong, or this is some sort of punishment for things that they've done in the past, or this is karma or whatever. But it is not. And today in this brief episode, I want to share a little bit about that and where your pain is actually coming from and why it is still there. And I want you to stop blaming yourself for the fact that it started or that it is still there. And hopefully what I'm sharing today will help you see that this is truly the case, okay? So the reason why your pain is still there is something else. It has nothing to do with you being a bad person or you having done something wrong in the past. And the pain is in no way your fault. And I really want you to take that in. Understand it, please. Your pain or your other chronic sensation is not your fault. And also the reason why it hasn't left yet, even though you've done the work, is also not because there's something bad about you, wrong about you, or that you're being punished, right? You have this pain because your nervous system and your brain are running on old patterns. These are the patterns that started in you when you were really young. And they started in you as a result of what happened in your life when you were really young. So blaming yourself now for like, oh, I did something wrong, I was bad to this person, whatever, right? This is not the case at all. Like, this stuff started because of how your, partly at least, how your life was when you were little. Your life when you were young, your upbringing, your relationships with your parents, siblings, friends, your traumas, all of these have a lot to do with your pain, and that's why you just can't blame yourself, right? So let's say that you had a really tough childhood and you maybe experienced some abuse, or maybe your parents divorced, or some kind of neglect or abandonment. There are some wounds in there, and they are not your fault, right? I'm probably going to say that at least 5 more times today. They are not your fault. And if you right now looked at a child who is experiencing something like this, they are experiencing maybe parents' divorce or abuse, physical or mental, emotional, any kind, would you ever say that this is the child's fault? I don't think so. So that's why I want you to stop blaming yourself too. What is going on right now is not your fault. And so when you went through these difficulties in your childhood, then you likely learned to use certain coping strategies. And you're using them now. You're still using them because you haven't unlearned them. So some of the coping strategies are the ones that I've also talked about recently, such as people pleasing, such as avoiding conflict and saying yes to everything, even if you want to say no, such as perfectionism. These are the coping strategies that back then, when you were little, helped you out, very likely helped you out. For example, if your parents were really critical, then you found comfort in people pleasing because then you got the love that you wanted. And you wanted it because you were dependent on your parents. And now you're still people pleasing as an adult because this is a habit. This is the pattern that your brain and nervous system are operating from. If you're avoiding conflict, then maybe this helped you when you were little, right? You avoided conflict, you ran away, you felt safer, right? And now you think you have to do the same thing. If something comes up, you go hiding instead of bringing the problem up and discussing it. You just are not used to doing this because this is not how you grew up. Another one, perfectionism. Again, a great coping strategy for back in the day when you needed it. Again, maybe you had to have perfect grades, and perfect grades gave you the sense of safety because nobody got mad. And now you think you still have to do everything with like 100% perfectionism. Like anything that's less than A+ is a failure. So these are the patterns that were in you when you were really young already. And if you haven't changed these patterns yet, then they're still here now, 40, 50, 80 years later, and they are running your life and causing you pain. This is your nervous system that has learned these patterns, right? And you haven't successfully changed them yet. And if you still blame yourself for like, oh, it's my fault that I have pain, what really helps me is to visualize myself sitting on a high mountain and then looking down. And then what's down is my nervous system and all this stuff that has happened over the years, especially when you were a child. What are all the traumatic things that happened? And you as a child, you didn't have the capacity to handle it. So when you are able to see from high above what's been going on there, you're probably going to find a lot of compassion for yourself and see that this truly isn't your fault. How could you blame yourself for stuff that happened and some of the stuff that was done to you? As children, we don't have the tools. We were dependent on our parents and our caregivers. So how could you say no, or how could you be not perfect because maybe you're punished? So now you're using the same things as an adult, and these things are keeping you in pain. And that's why it's so important that we start changing our habits, that we first, of course, become aware of these things, that, oh, I'm doing this again, even though I'm not 3 anymore. I'm still going into perfectionism and people pleasing, even though I'm, 5 or 8. I'm not that age anymore. I'm still doing it, and understand, oh, this is the old pattern. It's just like a default operating system that you never realized before, and now is your opportunity to jump in and cut through it and do things differently. Literally change your behavior. This has to become like this awareness practice that you do all the time. Start noticing, oh, I'm doing this again? Okay, that's this thing that a little 5-year-old me would have done, but I don't have to do this anymore because I don't have to earn my parents' approval or other people's approval. I'm an adult now. I can do things my way. There's not going to be punishment. Become really good at catching these old patterns. Become very aware of what you're doing, and little by little, you start healing. Now, the childhood patterns is one of the reasons why I had that pain. And if you haven't changed these states and gotten yourself out of those patterns and habits, that's why your pain is still around. The other thing is that the pain is there also because you likely have so much on your plate right now. A good exercise would be to write down all the things that you do and are responsible for every day. And you see that this is a lot. Most people have a lot that they have to deal with every day. So when you write these things down and look at it, honestly, you're like, oh, it's actually not surprising that my nervous system feels stressed out, that I feel anxious all the time, and that I have pain. Because now, in addition to all the old stuff from 40 years ago, now I also have these everyday stressors that are contributing. So take a look at these things, how you grew up and the amount of stress that you're experiencing right now. And when you look at this honest picture, I hope that you feel so much compassion for yourself. And can you see how much you have been carrying and probably continue to carry at the moment? So if you have pain, this is not your fault. This is the stuff that is going on and that was going on when you were young. But of course, that doesn't mean that you cannot change. Of course you can. And that's why neuroplasticity is awesome. We can change our patterns and habits and behaviors and change the pain as well. Now, these things like the amount of stress and then the old coping patterns that you're still using can make you very, very anxious on a regular basis and very tense in your body because you're always stressing. You're always worrying. You're worrying about, was I perfect enough? Do people like me? Oh my God, I posted this thing and one word was wrong. Should I take that down now? You're just worrying and worrying and worrying, right? And you're anxious all the time. So when this happens, it is very important that you get out of that state of rumination, overthinking, over worrying. And I find that it's very helpful to get into your body, just like we did in a previous episode too. We did an exercise, and we're actually going to do another one today because I got a lot of good feedback on this one and also on the one that I did on Instagram about a week ago. Getting into this physical body when you are noticing these old patterns, old stuff that you now know is not serving you, will help you to cut that loop. And you're not going to go deeper and deeper into this and start people pleasing and doing all these things again. So it's very helpful. I've found it in my own personal experience to get into the body, do something different. And then, of course, on top of that, on a regular basis, everyday basis, you can also change these habits and behaviors that you have been doing. Because just like getting into your body and quote unquote fixing something quickly is not going to fix anything underneath that is actually bigger. So today I want to do an exercise with you. And if you would like to do this as we go through it, it would be really great because I think you're going to find it very beneficial. And it's good to do if you are feeling this way, like, oh, I'm not good enough. I haven't made enough progress. Why the heck is the pain still there? Or it can be for anything, like where you're super self-judgmental and you just feel this anxiety and tension building up. So we're going to do a physical exercise. And before we start, I want to make sure that you know that if you have a heart condition or something called retinopathy, don't do this exercise because it will temporarily increase your blood pressure. And of course, as you know, I am not a medical doctor. So if you have any doubts, please talk to your doctor before you do this. But if you are healthy, if you feel good, if you want to join me for this one, this is one of my favorite exercises, which I find that brings down this feeling of like anxiety and tension and, oh my God, why I'm not better. All of these things or any of these things, it brings it down very, very, very quickly. And it's one of the more powerful exercises that I like to do personally as well. And it's a breathing exercise. So let's get started with it if you would like to join me for this one. So let's get into seated position. And then from there, we're going to take 5 count inhale through the nose. And then, don't start just yet. I'm going to describe it first. And then we're going to bear down, plug our nose. And we're like trying to press the air out so that we tighten up our abs. So we're going to direct the air into our abs, but without actually exhaling, right? So you're not letting any air out of your mouth or your nose. You're actually creating this pressure in your chest and your stomach. And this is known as the Valsalva maneuver. If you are familiar with weightlifting, you may have heard this term. This is actually the same pressure that you create in your body when you are, for example, doing very heavy deadlifts or squats. They help you to stabilize your core so that your lift will be stronger. So it's actually a similar technique, right? So we're going to do that, and then we're going to press the air, like I said, tighten the abs, plug the nose, and you're going to press like this. And then we're going to exhale, right? We do that a couple of rounds, and then we're going to finish with laying down on the floor, putting our legs up, and massaging our chest. So this is how it's going to work. And let's get started. I'm going to walk you through everything step by step. So get into a comfortable seated position and inhale through your nose for 5 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plug the nose, bear down, tuck your chin a bit, and press. So create this internal pressure in your abs and press. Don't push the air through your nose or mouth at all. So just keep tightening, keep this tense position, and let go. And take a few calming breaths here. And you may already feel like your body relaxed a lot as you did it. We're going to do it twice more. All right, you with me? And inhale for 5 through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pinch your nose, bear down, and press. Tighten the tension in your abdomen and your chest. And release. And you should feel how you are feeling more relaxed already, more grounded, more present. Take a couple of more breaths here, and we'll do one more time. All right, let's go. Inhale for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pinch your nose, bear down, then press and hold for about 10 seconds. Let go. Okay. And now lay down on the floor and put your legs up at about 45 degrees or so, or they can also be on the wall. So 45 degrees is roughly if you're near a bed or couch. So put your legs up on a bed or couch, or then you can put them on the wall too. And relax. And now just take your one hand, or you can also put one hand on top of the other, and just gently massage your chest area. Just small circles. And breathe in a relaxed way. And just keep going like this. And I'm going to tell you why we did this. Because when you are carrying all this anger and this, why I'm not better yet, or why do I have all these problems, you are probably very self-judgmental and you are on high alert all the time. And if you are on high alert all the time, this is not where you heal. You heal in a place that is more calm, relaxed, accepting, settled, slow. And this just isn't the case when you are constantly blaming yourself. And the reason why we're massaging or doing these little circles on your chest is this is for your heart. Like I talked, this is self-compassion. We want to have more self-compassion. Again, so we stop blaming. And again, like I said, I really love this visualization. It works really well for me. And in fact, I actually did it last night myself too, where I felt like about some things, like why things are this way, and kind of noticing a little bit of self-blame kicking in. Just when you are, again, taking yourself to the top of the mountain and looking down of this person who's going through all these things, or this little child who went through all these things, can you really be angry? Or can you send more love to yourself? Okay, so you can come back to this exercise whenever you want to, but remember that this is not only about fixing things through somatic experiencing. What has to happen on a daily basis too is looking at your habits, behaviors, and how you show up in your life, becoming aware of what you are doing, and catch yourself if you are about to get down on yourself and tear yourself apart and all this BS. When you start doing all this, bring in self-compassion and change your response, right? I love talking about shame, and I've mentioned it many times that my course Emotional Fit is has a lot about shame in it. Like when shame kicks in, you want to tell the shame that I'm going to do the opposite thing. So when the shame is telling you, you cannot say no to this person, you cannot not take on this new work responsibility, you cannot say no to whatever, right? Your shame is telling you all this because it wants to tell you that you're a bad person, right? But you're going to do the opposite. You're going to say, hey, you know what? No, I have my self-worth now, and I am strong. I know what I'm doing. I take good care of my energy, my resources. I'm not going to supposed to spread myself so thin. I'm not going to blame myself. I'm not going to do what everybody else wants if I suffer. I'm not going to do this anymore. I know what's good for me, and that's what I'm going to do from now on. So I hope this episode was helpful for you today. Let me know how you are enjoying these somatic practices. And if you do, maybe I will do more of them in the future episodes as well. All right, thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you again next week. Take care.